I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. At Tuesday's Senate Appropriations Committee hearing, Senator Brian Schatz asked Miguel Cardona point blank if arming teachers would make schools safer. Immediately, the Education Secretary said no. Cardona said even considering arming educators is ludicrous and reflects the lack of respect for the teaching profession. Listen in for the full exchange.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Secretary, for being here. Let me just start with an easy one. I think it's an easy one. Would arming teachers make schools safer?
No.
Can you elaborate a bit?
Look, our educators over the last 2 years have bent over backwards for our students. To think that arming our teachers and now having them be responsible for discharging a firearm in our schools, it's just ludicrous to think about. I think it's a further reflection of the lack of respect that this profession has, and I would stand against that. That is not the way to move forward.
Thank you for that. What's your view of online learning? We're in a new phase of this pandemic. I'll just give you my prejudices here. I just think it didn't work. I think it was understandable. I think we knew less about the virus, and a lot of those choices were made before the availability of the vaccine and our deeper understanding of how the virus impacts children. I think online learning was a total disaster, and I'm just interested to hear your views on this.
Sure. Having to develop a reopening plan in Connecticut when we knew very little about the pandemic, there were no vaccines. Testing took 5 days to get a response, and we didn't know transmissibility. We were working with OSHA, with epidemiologists. I think the decision to close schools and provide safe alternative was the best and the right decision. Moving quickly to reopening schools was the priority across the country. With that said, blended learning or hybrid learning is no substitute for in-person learning. I can agree with that. I do think blended learning has a role as we move forward in education, but I don't think that the transition to fully online learning worked for most students. Although for some students, a small number of students in my visits have reported that they felt more comfortable that way. The majority of students wanted to return back to in-person learning.
Amen. Let me ask you about Pell restoration and second chance Pell grants. As the department transitions from the second chance Pell pilot to the full Pell restoration, does the department plan to integrate existing pilot sites into the new prison education program to prevent a gap in education programming?
Yeah, we're proud of the increase in the second chance Pell experiment. We added, as you know, 73 additional sites. Now we're at 200, and we do look at this as an opportunity to help provide skills that could then translate into productive lives and jobs for those who are getting a second chance. And we do want to see that continue and continue to expand to close those gaps that were established, yeah.
I want to talk to you about mental health support for students. In a recent School Pulse panel, 70% of public schools reported an increase in the percentage of students seeking mental health services. And by the way, I think it's 100% of the schools having an increase in mental health challenges, 70% reporting.
Right.
And only 56% of public schools reported that their schools are able to effectively provide mental health services. We're not going to have enough money through the federal Department of Education to address this. I'm wondering how we can lift up what's working and scale it and provide it to departments of education and schools, because I don't think we can necessarily pile on.
Right.
There should be mental health resources spent, but some of this is going to be about lifting up what's already working, and I'm wondering if you can comment on that.
Sure, and I can tell you as an educator, we've never had enough mental health support available to our students. We haven't. You pile on pandemic, you pile on fears now of safety. The ratio I was in Michigan recently, the ratio between a school counselor and a student was like 700, over 700 in a particular community. That's unacceptable. So I recently was on a call with governors from different bipartisan group of governors talking about the importance at the state level also that mental health supports get elevated. It can't just be the American Rescue Plan dollars. That's insufficient. Our budget does provide funding requests for long-term help, but it's all hands on deck, states and local communities also.
Final question. Do I have your commitment to continue supporting the funding for the Native Hawaiian Education Program?
Absolutely.
Thank you.